So we just got another Silent Hill transmission, and with it we got a bunch of new information about the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake. If you're new to this channel, I've been so hyped. The Silent Hill franchise is without a doubt one of the most important, impactful franchises in my life, and Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I reacted to the first couple trailers. I released a video talking about the top 5 things that I think the remake needs to do in order to be successful and worthy of existing. You should go check those out. And I was going to just release another standard trailer reaction. In fact, I recorded a trailer reaction, and while I was editing it, I realized it was just like 3 minutes of me staring intently at the TV, not really saying anything because I was so hyper focused. So I decided to scrap that video and make this one instead, which is just going to be me talking about my overall thoughts, my overall opinion after watching that new trailer in that 13 minutes of gameplay, and see if my expectations have changed at all. Am I more hyped? Am I less hyped? But before we get into all of the details, you should consider subscribing. I talk about video games all the time on this page. I do day one reviews very often, and horror video games get special treatment on this page. It's my favorite genre ever. But I also talk about and review movies and TV shows. But anyway, let's talk about the Silent Hill 2 remake. So when this Silent Hill transmission ended, I'm very happy to say that my thoughts are a lot more positive than they were before. If you watched any of my previous reactions or videos, I always remained optimistic. I always remained positive, but I was slightly skeptical because I'm not the biggest fan of Bloober Team, and I thought that there were some things in the trailer that made me really hesitant. But again, after watching that gameplay, after watching that trailer, I feel like they made me feel a lot more confident in the product, in the remake of one of the most important games to not only me, but to so many people. So first off, based on that trailer, based on that gameplay, I feel like they absolutely are nailing the tone and the atmosphere, which is arguably the most important thing, the thing that absolutely needed to be perfected for this to feel like the original Silent Hill 2, because that tone, that atmosphere, it's so specific, and it really needed to be replicated as best as they could. And from what we saw, I feel like they're doing it as best as they can do, from the little ambient noises, to the soundtrack, to the sound of the footsteps when you're walking around, to the sound of the monsters, to the sound of the gunshots, to the sound of James beating up nurses with his wooden table leg. And more importantly, the motion capture performances and the voice acting is so much better than I was expecting it to be, and I have a feeling a lot of people might disagree with me on this one. When it comes to that original trailer, I was so worried that they were going to make James too emotional, too human. Almost every single shot that we saw of him, he looked like he was on the verge of tears. That's not the case in this new trailer, and that's not the case in this new gameplay. What we're seeing here is so much more reminiscent of the original James. He's so much more monotone. He's so much more comfortable. He's not very scared. He doesn't seem to be too nervous being in the town that he's in, being in the situation that he's in. He always seems a bit too comfortable in the scenario that we find him in. And I have a feeling some people who don't really remember the original could see this and feel like there's something off. They could think that it's bad acting or a little bit of uncanny valleyness. But I feel like it's absolutely intentional because, again, in that original Silent Hill 2 game, James was very anticlimactic as a person, and it added to the themes of that game. But again, not to sound like a broken record here, but one of the things I was the most nervous about going into the remake was James being too human, too emotional. But I'm very thankful that it does not look like that's going to be the case. And the same can be said for all of the supporting characters that we've seen so far. Angela, Laura, the tiny bit that we saw of Maria, the tiny bit that we saw of Mary, all of that voice acting seems to be perfect. It's reminiscent very much of the original game, but the dial is turned slightly more towards acting like a more real human, which I feel like that's not bad if they don't do it too much. And another thing that I'm really thankful for after watching this gameplay footage is that the art style is really starting to grow on me to the point where I actually think that I like it. Because before, I didn't really like how clean everything looked. Everything looked a bit too sterile, a little cartoony. I didn't like the slight stylized take on the graphics. But after watching 13 minutes of gameplay, I'm actually starting to like it. I feel like this game is probably a lot lower budget than a lot of other modern horror games like Resident Evil 4 Remake or Alan Wake 2. And I have a feeling doing this stylized look is a way for Bloober Team to make a really compelling visual and to make it match tonally, but to not look bad. Because I have a feeling based on the budget that they have, that they were probably given, if they wanted to make a super realistic looking game, it probably would have ended up looking bad. It probably would have ended up looking like a early PS4 game, honestly. But since they slightly turned the graphics more towards stylized, they're able to create this cohesive, good-looking game. The gameplay also looks clunky, but in the best ways possible, because another thing that I really wanted the remake to do was to have clunky gameplay. I didn't want James to feel like a powerhouse. I didn't want James to feel like he knew what he was doing. I never wanted James to feel like he was comfortable in a combat scenario. And based on this gameplay that we're seeing, it looks perfect to me. He looks like he's just a regular average dude with a table leg in his hands, and he's forced to beat to death these monsters over and over and over again, and it just looks brutal, and I love it. However, the gunplay doesn't look amazing, but I don't really think the gunplay should be amazing in a Silent Hill game. But if there were a few things that I was still skeptical about this game going into the official release, is that I'm not entirely convinced that this game is going to perform well on a technical level. I'd love to be proven wrong, but even in that pre-recorded gameplay that we saw, it looked like there was slight stuttering, so it really genuinely would not surprise me at all if when the game launches this October that it's reported that it's a buggy mess, and that worries me, but I hope that's not the case. And I'm also slightly concerned with how long this game is going to be. I don't know why. I have no reason to be worried about that. I just am. The original Silent Hill 2 is not a long game by any stretch of the imagination. I think I beat it for the first time when I was 12, and it took me like 9 hours. Not a long game at all. But for some reason, I'm just worried that Bloober Team is going to shorten sections, like maybe we'll get through the apartments or the hospital in like half an hour, and I really hope that's not the case. But the biggest thing that disappoints me so much about this Silent Hill transmission and the official release of Silent Hill 2, and a lot of you might not even care about this, but I really wanted a physical collector's edition. If you don't know this about me, I'm a huge collector of physical media, movies, video games, and I was looking forward to a Silent Hill 2 collector's edition. I would have bought it no matter what it consisted of, but they didn't reveal one, so I guess one's not happening, and that depresses me. I had PlayStation Direct's website loaded up, I had GameStop loaded up, I had Best Buy loaded up. I was ready to order that thing instantaneously. But anyway, that's my quick and brief thoughts about the newest Silent Hill transmission. That's how my thoughts have evolved and changed about the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake. I was optimistic about this game. I was really looking forward to it, but I had a healthy dose of skepticism, of worry, and I'm happy to say that now I'm just really looking forward to this game. Based on what I saw, I think the pros are going to greatly outweigh the cons. What did you think about the new gameplay footage? What did you think about the new trailer? Are you more optimistic about this release now, or are you more skeptical, or do you not care? And if you don't care, thank you for watching this video as long as you did. But anyway, once again, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far.